I still remember the exact time, because later the police told me it was 11:47 p.m. on a cool October night in Tucson when an 8-year-old boy named Marcus Williams came staggering across his front lawn. He was barefoot, his pajamas streaked with soot, his face wet with tears, and he was screaming that his 4-year-old brother, Jalen, and his mom were trapped upstairs in the burning Victorian house behind him. The fire was already out of control. Flames were pouring from the second floor, and thick black smoke was rolling into the night sky. Marcus kept shouting that his mother's boyfriend, the one who was supposed to be watching them, had left hours earlier. The kid didn't fully understand what that meant yet, but he knew one thing for sure: his family was still inside, and the house was on fire. That's when he saw me. I was pulling my Harley to the curb when Marcus locked eyes with me. I could see the hesitation hit him all at once. Leather vest. Tattoos. A big guy on a motorcycle in the middle of chaos. Every instinct probably told him to be scared of me, but fear didn't stand a chance against desperation. Marcus ran straight at me and grabbed the front of my vest with both hands. His fingers were shaking, leaving black smudges on the leather as he begged me for help. He didn't care who I was or what I looked like. All he cared about was his brother and his mom. Losing them scared him a whole lot more than trusting a stranger ever could. "My brother's still inside," he kept crying. Those words hit me harder than the heat from the fire. "My name's Danny Torch Reeves. I'm a former Phoenix firefighter, retired early after a back injury, and at the time, I was serving as Sergeant-at-Arms for the Desert Brotherhood MC. When Marcus grabbed me and said those words, everything I'd ever been trained to do came rushing back. I didn't hesitate. I pulled off my colors and handed my vest to the boy. I told him to hold on to it and not let anyone take it. Then I turned toward the fire and ran straight into that house without gear, without backup, and without waiting for permission. The place was already coming apart. I crawled through the smoke, down a hallway that was starting to collapse, and found a mother shielding her little boy under a soaked blanket. I carried them both out just seconds before the staircase behind me gave way. People later said it was bravery. I don't see it that way. Training never really leaves you. And the instinct to protect doesn't care about leather vests, tattoos, or what society expects you to be afraid of. By the time I turned onto Maple Street, the house was fully involved. Fire was blowing out every upstairs window, and the sound of it was loud enough to cut through the rumble of my engine. Neighbors stood on their lawns in bathrobes and pajamas, phones pressed to their ears, faces glowing orange as they watched the old Victorian being consumed. I was 41 years old then, 6'3", broad-chested, arms covered in tattoos that told the story of my life. Flames ran up my left forearm from my firefighting days, back before my injury ended that career. Skulls and roses covered my right arm, ink from the Brotherhood that gave me direction afterward. My beard was thick and dark, just starting to show gray, and my pale blue eyes had already seen more fire than most people see in a lifetime. That night, I'd been riding home from a late dinner at the clubhouse. I took the long way through the older neighborhoods because the air was cool and the stars were out. When I reached the house, I barely had the kickstand down before I was off the bike. Habit took over. I scanned the scene without thinking. Fire concentrated on the second floor and spreading fast. Probably started in a back bedroom. Maybe 20 minutes before total collapse. I could hear fire trucks in the distance, sirens closing in, maybe 3 minutes away. The neighbors weren't helping, just filming and staring. Then I saw Marcus. He looked about 8 or 9, stumbling across the lawn, his face smeared with soot and tears, bare feet leaving prints in the grass. He was yelling something, but the roar of the fire swallowed his words. I ran to him. When he saw me coming, he froze for half a second. My size, the leather, the tattoos. But panic pushed past fear almost instantly. "My brother," he screamed, clutching my vest. "My brother's still inside. Please." Mommy went to get him, and she didn't come back. The fire got bigger, and I couldn't find them. "Please, mister. Please." I dropped to one knee and put my hands on his shoulders, forcing calm into my voice even as adrenaline surged through me. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus. Marcus Williams." "Okay, Marcus. Where's your brother?" "What room?" "Upstairs. End of the hall. Last door. He's only 4. His name is Jalen." I nodded. "You did the right thing getting out. You did exactly right." I stood and looked at the house. Smoke was pouring from the open front door like it was alive. The first floor hadn't fully ignited yet, but it was about to. "Where's your dad?" I asked. "He's at work. Nights. Mom's boyfriend was supposed to watch us, but he left." That was all I needed to hear. I pulled off my vest and handed it to Marcus. "Hold this. Don't let anyone take it. I'm going to get your brother and your mom. Stay right here. Help is coming." "But the fire." "I know fire," I told him. "It's what I did before I was a biker." Then I turned and ran. The smoke on the first floor was thick, visibility down to maybe 3 feet. I stayed low and pulled my shirt over my mouth and nose. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The heat was intense, the noise overwhelming, the house groaning as the structure above started to fail. I found the stairs and climbed carefully, testing each step with my weight. The higher I went, the worse it got. My lungs burned. My eyes watered. Every warning instinct told me to turn back and wait for the professionals. But there was a little boy at the end of that hallway, and a mother who hadn't come back. When I reached the second floor, the hallway was a tunnel of fire. Flames rolled along the ceiling, walls blistered and blackened, doors warped by heat. The last door at the end was closed, smoke leaking through the cracks. That mattered. A closed door meant a chance. I dropped to my hands and knees and crawled toward it, feeling heat through my jeans, moving as fast as I safely could. The handle was hot, but not enough to stop me. I pushed the door open. Inside was a child's bedroom. A race car bed, toys scattered across the floor, posters peeling from the walls. And in the corner, under a wet blanket, was a mother holding her little boy. When I stepped into that room, the woman looked up at me like she was staring at the last door left open in the world. Her face was tight with fear, but there was something else there too, pure determination. She couldn't have been much older than 30. Her skin was dark, slick with sweat and soot, and she was holding her little boy so tight it was like she was afraid he might disappear if she loosened her grip. The kid was crying into her shoulder, fists balled up in her shirt, shaking but alive. "Fire department," she gasped, hope and panic tangled together in her voice. "Close enough," I told her. "Can you walk?" She shook her head. I twisted my ankle on the stairs. "I can barely stand." I didn't waste time. I took one quick look at both of them and ran the math in my head. She could move if someone supported her. The boy was small enough for me to carry. And judging by the heat creeping into that room, we had maybe a minute and a half before it became impossible to survive in there. "Here's what we're going to do," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm taking your son. You're going to hold on to my belt and stay right behind me. We stay low, we move fast, and we don't stop until we're outside. You understand me?" She nodded hard, tears cutting clean lines through the soot on her face. I lifted the boy into my arms. Jalen, 4 years old, maybe 30 pounds soaking wet. He was terrified, crying, but breathing. He wrapped his arms around my neck with a grip stronger than you'd expect from someone that small. "I've got you, buddy," I told him. "Close your eyes and don't let go." I grabbed the wet blanket his mom had been using and pulled it over both of us. Then I turned back toward the door. The woman, Kesha, I learned later, latched onto my belt and limped after me, one hand sliding along the wall for balance. The hallway was worse than before. Fire had eaten farther into the ceiling, dropping burning debris down in our path. The heat pressed in from all sides. I moved as fast as I could without losing my footing, feeling the floor flex beneath my boots with every step. The stairs were the part I'd been dreading. They sagged under our weight. I could hear them cracking, feel the structure giving way beneath us. I took most of Kesha's weight and guided her down step by step. Jalen stayed locked around my neck. The smoke was so thick I could barely see where the stairs ended. Then suddenly we were through the front door. We hit the night air just as the staircase collapsed behind us. The crash was thunderous, sending sparks and smoke blasting out into the yard. I didn't stop moving. I carried Jalen until we were a good 20 feet from the house, where Marcus stood clutching my leather vest like it was the most important thing he'd ever held. "Jalen!" Marcus screamed as I set his brother down. "Mommy!" They fell together in the grass, arms wrapped around each other, crying, alive. The fire trucks rolled in less than 2 minutes later. Paramedics swarmed the scene, checking vitals, wrapping Kesha's ankle, fitting oxygen masks over all 3 of them. I stayed back, lungs burning, hands stinging from the hot door handle, jeans scorched and torn. A fire captain walked up to me. I recognized the look right away, the calm authority, the sharp eyes. You went in there? He asked. Yes, sir. You a firefighter? Used to be. Engine 47. Phoenix. Back injury took me out 8 years ago. He looked at the house, now fully engulfed, roof starting to sag. Then he looked back at me. You know how stupid that was, he said. You know you could have died. Yes, sir. He paused. You also know you saved 3 lives. That's why I did it. After a moment, he held out his hand. Hell of a job. Reckless. Against every protocol. But a hell of a job. I shook his hand. I couldn't leave that boy in there. Not when I could do something. Marcus walked up beside me, still holding my vest. His face was cleaner now, oxygen mask hanging loose around his neck. He looked at me like I was something he'd never seen before. You saved my brother, he said. You saved my mom. I knelt down and took the vest from his hands. You saved them, I told him. You got out. You found help. You told me exactly where they were. That took real courage. But you went into the fire. That's just what I do, I said. What you did, thinking, getting out, finding someone. That's what made the difference. Don't ever forget that. He hugged me hard and fast, small arms locked around my neck. I hugged him back carefully, feeling his tears soak into my shoulder. Thank you, he whispered. Over and over. Kesha came over on crutches, Jalen riding in a firefighter's arms beside her. Her face held exhaustion, loss, and gratitude all at once. I don't know who you are, she said, her voice rough from smoke. I don't know why you were here, but you saved my babies. You saved me. No repayment needed, ma'am, I said. I'm Danny. Danny Reeves. I ride with the Desert Brotherhood. She laughed softly through tears. A biker saved my family. My grandmother always warned me about bikers. Sounds like a smart woman, I said. But even smart people can be wrong. She took my burned hand gently and pressed it to her cheek. God sent you down that street tonight, she said. I don't care what anyone says. I didn't argue. I know fire. I know timing. I know decisions made in seconds. But I wasn't about to correct a mother who just watched her children pulled out alive. Later, they figured out the fire started from faulty wiring. Old house. Bad system. The boyfriend who was supposed to be watching the kids had left hours earlier. He was charged, and the charges stuck. But that night, none of that mattered. What mattered was that a 4-year-old boy was alive. That an 8-year-old found the courage to run for help. That a mother shielded her child until help arrived. And that sometimes, the people we're taught to fear are the ones who run toward danger when everyone else runs away. If this story reminds you that courage doesn't always wear a uniform, that heroes don't wait for permission, and that 3 minutes can be the difference between tragedy and a miracle, then share it with someone who needs that reminder today. If stories like this matter to you, pass it along to someone who needs the reminder. And if you've ever seen someone run toward danger instead of away from it, I'd like to hear about it. Sometimes courage shows up where we least expect it. About 3 weeks after the fire, I got a letter. It wasn't an envelope from a lawyer or a department. It was construction paper, folded crooked, written in crayon by a kid still figuring out his letters. I knew who it was from the second I saw it. It said, Dear Mr. Danny, thank you for saving me and my mommy. I was really scared in the fire, but you came and got us. Marcus says you are a hero. Mommy says you are an angel. I think you are both. I am not scared of fire anymore, because I know you would come save me again. Love. Jalen. Age 4. Under the words was a drawing. 2 stick figures. One small, one bigger, dressed in black with a vest. Red and orange flames filled the house behind us. And above it all, a big yellow sun smiling down. I stared at that picture for a long time. I framed that letter and hung it in my room at the clubhouse where I could see it every morning. The burns on my hands healed. The smoke in my lungs faded. But the memory never left. Marcus grabbing my vest. His voice breaking when he said his brother was still inside. Jalen's arms locked around my neck as we came down those stairs. I had honestly believed my firefighting days were over. Thought the back injury had closed that door for good. But that night on Maple Street reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. Training doesn't disappear. Neither does the instinct to protect. You don't lose that. You carry it. A couple of weeks later, the Desert Brotherhood held a gathering for me. Brothers rode in from 3 different states just to shake my hand, hear the story, call me reckless and brave in the same sentence. The chapter president, Scar, stood up in front of everyone and said something that meant more to me than any medal I ever earned. He said I went into a burning house without gear, without backup, without knowing if I'd come out alive. He said I did it because a child asked for help. And he said that was exactly who we are. We protect. We serve. We don't wait for permission to do the right thing. The room erupted. I stood there embarrassed, uncomfortable, but grateful. Grateful for the brotherhood I found after losing the career I thought defined me. I stayed in touch with the Williams family. Christmas cards, birthday notes, photos of two boys growing taller, stronger, healing from a night that could have taken everything. 3 years later, another letter arrived. This one was written neatly, carefully. From Marcus. He was 11 now. He told me it was for a school project about heroes. His teacher had asked them to write about someone they admired, someone who changed their life by doing something brave. He told his class about the night of the fire, about running outside and not knowing what to do, about seeing my motorcycle and my vest. He admitted he was scared of me at first, said I looked tough, dangerous, even. But he said he was more scared of losing his mom and his little brother. So he ran to me anyway. He wrote about how I didn't hesitate, how I handed him my vest and ran straight into the fire, how I carried Jalen out and helped his mom down the stairs even while the house was coming apart. Then he wrote the part that stopped me cold. He said he learned that heroes don't always look the way people expect. Sometimes they wear leather and ride motorcycles. Sometimes they're the people everyone tells you to be afraid of. He said he learned that being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you move anyway, because someone needs help. He ended by saying he didn't know what he wanted to be when he grew up. Not necessarily a firefighter. Not necessarily a biker. Just someone who helps. Someone who doesn't wait. Someone who runs toward the fire. I read that letter 3 times before I could see straight. I wrote him back the same day. Dear Marcus, getting your letter was one of the best moments of my life. You're already a hero, buddy. And I meant every word. I told Marcus something in that letter that I meant with everything I had. I told him he was a hero the moment he ran for help instead of hiding. He was a hero when he grabbed my vest and told me exactly where his family was. He was a hero when he stood on that lawn and waited, even though he was scared out of his mind. I told him the truth, that what I did came from training and habit. That part was familiar to me. What he did was harder. In the worst moment of his life, he made a choice. He trusted a stranger who didn't look like help was supposed to look. That kind of courage doesn't come from strength or size. It comes from heart. I told him to keep being that person. The one who asks for help when he needs it. The one who runs towards solutions instead of freezing in fear. The one who doesn't let panic decide his future. I told him I could already tell he was going to do great things. I signed it the same way I always do. Your friend, Danny Torch Reeves. The house on Maple Street didn't survive the fire. It was torn down later and replaced with something new. Something that looked nothing like the old Victorian. The Williams family moved to a different neighborhood, a safer place, and started over. Every now and then, I still ride past that block late at night. The streets are quiet. The stars are out. And I remember the heat, the smoke, and the weight of a 4-year-old boy in my arms. But more than that, I remember an 8-year-old kid in pajamas running across a lawn to grab a stranger's vest and beg for help. That's the story. That's what happens when courage meets courage. A child brave enough to ask. A man willing to answer. The Desert Brotherhood doesn't have an official motto, but if we did, I think it would be simple. Run toward the fire. Someone in there needs you. Thank you for taking the time to hear this story. About a biker who walked into an inferno, and a boy who was brave enough to trust someone he didn't understand. If it reminded you that heroes don't always look the way we expect, that children can show courage that humbles adults. And that help sometimes comes from the last place we're told to look. Then pass it on. Share it with someone who needs that reminder. And if you believe that community still matters, even when that community wears leather and rides motorcycles, consider subscribing to Bike Diaries. I'd also like to know, have you ever been helped by someone unexpected? Have you ever run toward danger when others stepped back? Because somewhere right now, a child is scared. A family is waiting. And maybe the person who can make the difference is someone the world taught them to fear. Be the one who runs in anyway. Be the hero they didn't expect. Be the reason someone gets to go home.